Since you can't even do chores properly, you might as well just keep working, huh? Those words really annoyed me. Thomas used to oppose me working. He was jealous when I became a supervisor, asked me for money when I got a raise, and now he wants me to work nonstop. It's frustrating how selfish he can be. What's wrong? Got a problem? If you do, then do whatever you want, Thomas replied, seeing I was upset, with a look that said, fine, I'll do whatever I want to. I couldn't keep quiet, so I snapped back and went to bed annoyed. I was so angry at Thomas, but work doesn't stop for anyone. The next day, as soon as I got to the office, I asked for a meeting with the boss. Just like I told Thomas, I decided to do what I wanted and took on a certain task that had been suggested earlier. My name's Anna. I'm 30 years old and I married Thomas, who's also 30, about 3 years ago. We haven't had children yet, so we're both working hard and earning money. In the past, people used to expect women to stay home after marriage, but things are different now. Even though we work at different companies, we both have full-time jobs and share the household tasks. Thomas usually handles laundry and cleaning, while I focus on cooking meals. Since we got married, I've been trying to cook delicious meals that Thomas enjoys. At work, I work hard to match the performance of my male colleagues, and recently I was promoted to supervisor. Being a supervisor means I have more work to do, both in quantity and quality. However, Thomas, despite being a coworker, didn't try to understand my situation. One evening at dinner, Thomas said, "Didn't we have this for dinner yesterday? Your cooking seems a bit careless these days. Please put more effort into it." Thomas is still in a lower position, not a supervisor like me. Maybe he felt jealous that I got promoted before him. Instead of being happy for me, he started complaining every day. Even though I have less free time now, I still make sure to do my part in household chores, I thought, understanding that Thomas's complaints were rooted in jealousy, so I had to remain patient. I do my best to prepare in the mornings, but sometimes dinner ends up being late when I get home, so I've been making side dishes ahead of time. Side dishes again? So you're saying dinner is the same every day? That's not what I meant. Please don't misunderstand. You're the one who said you take care of meals when we got married, right? The women at my company handle their households well, even while raising kids. I always mention that. I couldn't respond. Maybe there are such women at Thomas's workplace, but comparing ourselves to others doesn't help. Besides, the women Thomas talks about actually work part-time. It's not that I think less of part-time work, but being compared like that doesn't sit right with me. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Well, I'll forgive you this time, 'cause I'm kind, Thomas replied, starting to eat again once I apologized. I wish he'd just eat without commenting if he's going to eat anyway, but there's nothing I can do about it. When I talk about Thomas to my friends, they say it's good practice for dealing with kids. Indeed, even though we don't have children, dealing with Thomas sometimes feels like dealing with a child. I have to handle him with patience. Oh, by the way, you did the laundry, right? Thanks for that. Huh? Oh yeah, of course that was the agreement, you know. Without me, the house wouldn't function, huh? I held back what I wanted to say and praised Thomas. He seemed pleased with that. Indeed, Thomas does his part of the household chores as we agreed, but when it comes to laundry, he doesn't check the care labels or use a laundry bag. He just throws everything in and presses one button for wash and dry. So sometimes Thomas complains about clothes shrinking or getting worn out. If that's what counts as doing chores properly, I wonder how well I'm actually managing. But I never expressed my dissatisfaction. The one time I did, it led to a big fight. Why didn't you quit your job and do everything yourself? That's what I said when we got married. I shouldn't have listened to anything you said, just like Betty told me. Thomas yelled angrily and insulted me, then stopped talking to me for about 2 weeks. Of course, during that time, he didn't do his share of the work, leaving me to handle everything on my own. I find it easier to endure some challenges than to feel completely drained, both mentally and physically. Indeed, as Thomas mentioned during our argument, he wasn't initially supportive of me working. Betty said there's nothing good about a married woman working outside. That's why I want you to stay at home, he told me. I don't know why Thomas's sister feels that way, but I was willing to go along with it if that's what Thomas preferred. However, it soon became clear that we couldn't manage on just Thomas's salary alone. We couldn't rely solely on ideals, we needed practical solutions, so I pleaded desperately with him to let me continue working. My company is reputable and pays well. If we both worked, we could have some financial flexibility. Reluctantly, Thomas agreed to my heartfelt plea, which led us to where we are now. Despite everything, whether reluctantly or not, Thomas did share in the household chores. It's true that even that much help was appreciated. As Thomas's birthday approached, we hadn't done anything lavish to celebrate since we got married. Normally, we would mark the occasion at home with my cooking. But this year, with my recent promotion and salary increase, I decided to treat him to a dinner at a hotel. On the day itself, after buying him a gift, Thomas was pleasantly surprised and thoroughly enjoyed the steak dinner. "This is the best meal I've ever had, but are you sure we can afford this?" he asked. It's your special day. I got a raise since becoming a supervisor and will budget more carefully from now on. No need to worry about the side dishes, all right? We shared a joke and ended the day that way. Yet, I didn't notice the smug smile on Thomas's face at that moment. A few days later, Thomas asked, "Hey, you mentioned your salary went up, right? How much of a raise did you get as a supervisor?" He kept bringing it up after his birthday. Supervisor seemed like a touchy subject we both avoided, but as soon as he heard about the raise, his attitude changed quickly. "Being a supervisor is great. You've worked hard for it." He started praising me like that. At first, I was surprised by his sudden shift and just gave a small smile to downplay it. But he kept pressing about the salary. I continued to dodge the topic, but when I kept avoiding him, he sulked. "What's wrong? Feeling superior now that you're a supervisor? Maybe you look down on me, just an employee at a small company. It was just a treat for your birthday. We're not wealthy, so let's not keep talking about money." I finally snapped, and that stopped his persistence. But it was clear Thomas was fixated on my income. If I had known it would lead to this, maybe I wouldn't have become a supervisor or celebrated his birthday. There was some regret, but it wasn't all bad. Since becoming a supervisor, I've been given an important project. Even though it means more work, Thomas has been supportive. "You're a supervisor and busy with work. I'll do what I can," he said, even preparing dinner, even if it was just frozen meals. Despite his focus on money, his effort made that birthday special, perhaps. Later, when the project settled down, Thomas asked eagerly, "So you've been busy, you must be getting a special bonus, right?" I was taken aback by his question. "No, why would there be a bonus?" I replied wearily, surprised. Then Thomas erupted. "Months of overtime and no bonus. What was the point of me helping then? What a lousy company." I didn't have the energy to argue back. Is there supposed to be a deeper meaning behind a couple's cooperation? The idea of him criticizing someone's company was hard to believe. That was the moment I couldn't hold back anymore. "What I meant was, I appreciated your help, but is this what you really think?" I responded, and Thomas fired back. This led to a heated argument. "Enough, let's stop. I'm tired and going to sleep," I said, ending the conversation abruptly. After that, I couldn't bear to look at Thomas for a while. Sometime later, I had to go on a business trip. We hadn't spoken since the argument, but I needed to inform him since I would be away. "I'll be gone for 2 nights and 3 days on a business trip. Please take care while I'm away," I told him. However, perhaps still upset, Thomas didn't respond. Without resolving things, I left for my trip. Busy with work for 3 days, I found myself wondering about Thomas during my breaks. Was he eating well? I worried, but my pride stopped me from reaching out. Being apart helped me calm down, and I planned to apologize upon my return. When I returned after 3 days of work, I brought back some tasty souvenirs and headed home. "I'm back," I announced upon entering, but something felt strange right away. There were many unfamiliar pairs of shoes by the door, and the scent of cooking filled the air, not the usual frozen meals, but the unmistakable aroma of home-cooked food. Thomas can't cook, I thought, rushing into the living room. "Oh, Anna, welcome back," Betty greeted me. "What are you doing here?" I asked, surprised to see Thomas's sister, Betty, in our kitchen. As I glanced around, I noticed Thomas's niece, Lisa, lounging on the couch as if she belonged there. It didn't seem like a casual visit. It looked like they had moved in. Even the couch seemed new, not the one we had before my trip. I stood at the living room entrance, completely bewildered by the scene unfolding before me. "Dinner will be ready soon," Betty said casually, while I continued to stare at her in disbelief. I walked over to Thomas, sitting in a chair in the living room, and asked him, "What's happening, Thomas?" "It's a big decision to live with Betty and Lisa now. The move is already done," Thomas said casually, acting like it was the most natural thing. "That's what's happening, so let's all get along," Betty added with a smile. But I couldn't find it in me to smile back. Moving their stuff in without asking, deciding to live together without discussing it first. "Hold on, you can't just decide this on your own," I protested. "What's the issue? You're always too busy with overtime to handle housework anyway. It's easier if we live together and Betty takes care of things," Thomas retorted to my objections. Betty had Lisa when she was 20 and got divorced a few years later. Since then, she's been a single mother raising Lisa, who is now 18, all on her own. I knew this, and I knew Thomas cared deeply for his older sister, Betty, but I never expected it would lead to us living together. "Come on, Anna," Betty said confidently. "Nice to meet you," Lisa murmured quietly. My head was throbbing, but I couldn't accept the situation silently. "I'm sorry, but I can't live with all of you," I said firmly. However, Thomas laughed at me as if it were a joke. "Why not? Since you can't even handle housework properly, you might as well keep working, right?" His words irritated me. It was Thomas who initially opposed me working, jealous of my promotion, then relied on my salary increase. And now he was telling me to keep working. It was unbelievable and selfish. What's the matter? Got a complaint? If you do, then do whatever you want, Thomas retorted with a frown, sensing my irritation. Fine, I'll do whatever I want then. But I was the one who wanted to be angry. I couldn't keep quiet, so I told Thomas how I felt. After that, we didn't speak, and I went to bed. Betty and Lisa apparently decided to give up their own place and moved into our home, bringing their bed with them. They turned the room that was supposed to be for our future children into their room without asking me. I felt more sadness than anger. But work couldn't wait. The next day, as soon as I arrived, I asked for a meeting with the director. I decided to take on a task that HR had proposed earlier. That's wonderful. I appreciate you taking it on. It's a great opportunity, so I'll give it my all, I promised the director, fully engrossed in my work. I found it more comforting to be at the office than at home. Unable to forgive Thomas, a few days later he messaged me, "Hey Anna, how long are you going to keep sulking? Just come back already." I had been going home, but only when everyone was asleep, leaving before anyone woke up. However, for the past few days, I hadn't even returned home because I found a new place to live. "Come back. You can't just do that," he replied, laughing. "I can't come back right away," I said. "Why not?" "I'm in Italy right now. It's the middle of the night here. And Betty's there to take care of the house, right?" "Huh?" Thomas paused, surprised by my tired response. It was night for him, but already the middle of the night where I was. Dealing with this conversation with Thomas after work was just training. Finally understanding, Thomas suddenly raised his voice. "What? Italy? You went on a trip without telling us?" "It's not a trip. I've been living here for the past 3 days. What are you talking about?" But my response seemed to confuse Thomas again. "Again? Didn't you say I could do whatever I wanted?" I could almost picture him stunned on the other end of the phone. "What I meant is, you told me to do whatever I wanted, and I did. So I accepted the assignment in Italy that was offered to me earlier. They've set up a condo for me, and it's a beautiful place," I explained. "There's a limit to doing whatever you want. This affects our life together, and you decided on your own." Thomas sounded upset. Surely if we had talked about it, we might have decided to move here together. But this assignment in Italy was like a reward for my hard work. Thomas was the one who got upset about the bonus and didn't listen to other things. Yet didn't it feel strange for him to say he decided on his own to live with Betty and Lisa? His own words were coming back to him. "Did you even discuss anything with me that affects our life together?" I questioned. "Well, I'll be working here and I'll return to the States as a manager in 2 years. Until then, enjoy life with Betty and her family," I concluded before hanging up. Thomas must be feeling uneasy now, his own actions and words preventing him from living abroad. A few days later, Thomas contacted me, wondering what it was about. I answered, and he sounded cheerful. "Guess where I am?" "I don't care. I'm working. I'm hanging up," I replied dismissively. "Believe it or not, I'm in front of your condo," he said. "Huh?" I was surprised by his words. He had called my work to get my address, claiming it was necessary for some procedures, and using that address, he had come over on his own. "What about your work?" I asked. "I took some time off and yep, I'm here too," said Betty's voice over the phone. Why she had come too was beyond me. I was exasperated. "So we're both waiting out here." "Hurry home," said Thomas. "Both? What about Lisa?" "Lisa has a test, so she couldn't come," Betty said casually, leaving me astonished once again. "Is that so? But I won't be returning today. I have a dinner meeting far away," I replied. Even if they had contacted me earlier, I wasn't in the mood to entertain them on such short notice. I had a social gathering with another company and had no plans to go home. "Huh? What should we do?" Thomas sounded panicked, but that wasn't my concern. "Stay at a hotel or something. Anyway, that's the situation. Also, I'm in the middle of work. Bye." I hung up the phone. They might be causing a commotion, but I didn't have time for it. They would probably give up and look for a hotel. However, I had underestimated the situation. In the middle of the social gathering, my phone rang. I excused myself and answered the phone, puzzled by the unfamiliar number. It turned out to be from the police. Excuse me, but apparently there was an intruder at my house, looking for an open window. They found one in the pet door. I didn't own a pet, so I hadn't noticed it before, but the house built by my company had one. Of course, I had no idea it even existed, so it wasn't locked. The intruder tried to enter through it and got stuck, unable to move forward or back, and was spotted by a passerby who then called the police. What a foolish burglar. Encountering such a fool could be dangerous. I was relieved I wasn't home at the time. "The person claims to be your sister. Do you know anything about this?" I went pale at those words. "Sister? I don't have a sister." The only possibility was Thomas's sister, Betty. As expected, the police mentioned her name. I was mortified. Unbelievable that she tried to force her way through such a small entrance. It made family relations embarrassing. "Anna, help me. Come pick me up." I could hear Betty causing a scene over the phone. What a nuisance. Although I could have gone to pick her up, I told the police. She may be my sister-in-law, but I can't forgive her for trying to break it in my house. Please thoroughly investigate what she intended to do in my home. The police responded to my complaint, and Betty was severely reprimanded. However, due to her lack of Italian language skills, there was a lot of confusion and stress, which made her break down crying. You must not cause trouble for your sister anymore, a police officer told her in simple English. Okay, Betty tearfully repeated. Getting caught by the police in Italy must have been a good lesson for her. Out of a desire for her to truly reflect, I didn't go to pick her up on the day she contacted me. The next day, thinking she might have reflected, I went to pick her up, and Betty broke down crying in relief. At that moment, I wondered, where was Thomas during all this? Only Betty was caught. Thomas was likely relaxing in a hotel, which I hadn't really considered. It turned out that while Betty was being arrested, Thomas was enjoying a meal alone, thinking Betty would bring money from my house and spending extravagantly at a restaurant. Oblivious to Betty's arrest, he ended up getting drunk and falling asleep at the restaurant. The restaurant, concerned about Thomas not responding, called the police, and he woke up in an unfamiliar police station. However, since my house and the restaurant were in different areas, Thomas was taken to a different police station. My wallet, my passport, where's my phone? Unfortunately, while he was unconscious, his bag was stolen, and he lost his wallet, passport, and phone. Thomas couldn't speak Italian and was arrested for dining and dashing, unable to seek assistance and ending up in police custody. I only realized Thomas was missing after Betty was released and asked about him. After learning the details and following Betty's account to the restaurant, I found out from the owner that Thomas had been taken by the police. When we visited the police station, Thomas, looking pale and emotional, broke down in tears when he heard our names. It felt like déjà vu. I explained the situation to the restaurant owner, settled the bill, and apologized. Despite the theft, the owner, feeling sympathetic towards Thomas, decided not to press charges for the dine and dash. However, what followed was a hassle. We had to go through procedures for the lost passport and contact the embassy because of Betty and Thomas. I couldn't focus on work for several days. Just when I was about to explode with frustration, Thomas casually remarked, "I thought everything was settled. I'm glad it worked out. Let's go back to Anna's place for now." Their nonchalant attitude infuriated me. Glad? This is not okay for me at all. After causing so much trouble, how can you call this a good outcome? I'm sorry, but maybe it's best if you return to your own home and don't come here again. My outburst silenced them both. I'm filing for divorce this weekend, I declared firmly. Thomas reacted with shock, and Betty stood beside him, equally taken aback, glancing between us. There's no point in staying married to you. Betty moved in without asking, got arrested in Italy without knowing the language, and disrupted my work. It seemed they finally grasped the seriousness of my anger. With their heads down, they stayed silent, while onlookers chuckled at two adults being scolded by a woman. But my anger was far from subsiding. "So I'm divorcing you. You don't have any objections, right?" I asserted, feeling entitled to live my life freely after rescuing him from the police. Thomas reluctantly agreed, reflecting on his actions, and responded quietly. Initially, Thomas had requested a 4-day leave from work, but due to his arrest and lost passport, he missed his return flight by a wide margin. Without a phone, he couldn't extend his leave and completely overlooked his work responsibilities. What's worse, he hadn't shared any information about his ongoing project, intending to take all the credit himself. His delayed return and lack of communication caused him to miss a crucial meeting, resulting in the cancellation of important deals with a client. Despite the significant losses incurred by the company, Thomas was fired. Betty, furious over this situation, had a heated argument with Thomas. Originally, Thomas quitting his job and moving in as a housekeeper resembled what happened. However, things took a turn with Thomas divorcing me and losing his job. With no income provider, our home became a place of frequent and intense arguments. Why? I understand all of this thanks to Lisa sharing details with me. Children can't choose their parents, but if I could, I'd choose you over Mom, she told me. Divorcing Thomas meant that Lisa and I were no longer related by marriage, but she still reaches out to me for career advice and to discuss her mom, treating me like a sister. I'm glad she sees me that way. Even though we don't see each other often, I'm continuing to work in Italy. Originally, I planned to return to America after 2 years, but now I've decided to stay and continue working here. I've also developed a strong bond with a man I met locally. I'm ready to leave behind the difficult memories and the beautiful surroundings of Italy and pursue new happiness.